The savior.
I will let you go.
The savior.
Tell me after what happened.
Help has arrived. Help has arrived. Well, this lovely fellow named Arnie, the mobile heavy-duty mechanic, he came to have a look. And it's worse than we thought. If it was only a gas leak. No.
Clean, responsible, low-carbon energy sector for Alberta and Canada's prosperity.
So in about half an hour or so, there's a very large tow truck coming. And I have to at least temporarily move out things that are going to spoil because the engine can't run because the transmission, the term he used was pooched. It should be all hopefully covered under warranty because I paid $6,500 7,000 kilometers ago to have this rebuilt. To go through an expense like that, which it ate really the last of, you know, like my slush fund. I still wanted to push forward with new, and if that truck hadn't broke down in Edmonton, then I would have had a new transmission in the RV. Oh, I'm not sure how long I'm going to be out of the RV, but I'm also not sure what I'm going to do. I don't even know what the outcome will be. I don't know if they're going to give me a hard time about trying to get it fixed. And bless her for taking me and my 2 dogs, right? Oh. That's a friend. That's a friend. Like I said, she and I lived in her car for a few days when we were waiting for our jobs to come through and the staff accommodation to come through when we were like 20 in Jasper. So, but we had a good time. It makes it still a good story. We actually ended up sleeping halfway up that same mountain that I had to walk down after my job interview that ended with pornography being played. So much better circumstance to be up that mountain at night. We were like kind of looking over the valley. We could see the lights of the town off in the distance, and yeah, we just had our sleeping bags and we reclined the front seats and we were in our sleeping bags, and every so often she would wake up and run the engine for a bit to give us some heat because it was cold. But anyway, as my great auntie in Regina used to say, however, we got through it. We survived. She was hilarious. She would tell the most horrific stories, of living on the farm in Saskatchewan, and it'd be a total straight face while she was telling it too, like, well then so-and-so, he lost his leg, and then the barn burned down, and blah blah, she's like telling this totally almost monotone, straight-faced story of just horror, and then she'd go, however, we got through it, we survived. I love it. Man, some of the characters that I've been related to or had the pleasure of meeting throughout my journey through life here, fuck. Yep, and there's about to be another journey. Anyway, the unknown is always, I think, the most challenging part. But if it's so, like in this thing where it's so completely unknown, and like, yeah, this whole experiment might be over, depending on what they tell me about my frippin' transmission, right? Oh, the sun, and the steam of the coffee. Go, the waggly tail, no, go eat your num-nums. Go eat your num-nums. And there's home. Even this morning it's bringing back that memory of living out of the suitcase as I endeavor to go and move into my friend's couch for a few days. Hi, Sadie. Hi, Sadie. Good morning. Good morning. Crazy girl. Hair that they lose. And yet they are not bald. I kind of feel like I'm moving out. And I guess in a sense I am. I really have had no issue with the RV life. You know, the tiny living, the mobility, being able to bring your own bed, BYOB, when you go visit a friend, in case you get into the, other BYOB. So that stuff is all good. And living even with the 2 dogs in here, I'm good. But yeah, it's dealing with the city. It's been a wholly different experience coming out here this time and living and working in a city. Like that time I was in that little town, so I think any little town, remote area where there's lots of hiking, lots of camping, people surfing, it's a different attitude towards people like me and living like this. So maybe that was my grand mistake or naivete about this trip, was that somehow I could make it work. I mean, when I was living that winter at Weir Beach, I don't think I had a single rough day. Not even when the lines froze and it was below zero for like 3 days. Sorry, below freezing for those of you in America. I was like, oh, well, I've got backup water jugs, no problem. So the storms, the rocking, there was some windstorms. And I really enjoyed being that close and part of the elements, again, like, there was some like wind warnings, but obviously there wasn't like a freaking hurricane that's gonna toss me over. That would be a whole other story. But in general, I didn't have a single day that was poor as a result of living in the RV. Later, we'll pick this up later. I got a lot to carry over to the house garage now. What a hassle! Holy shit! Ugh. Poop and scoop at all times, especially when boondocking in a neighborhood. Clean up after yourself, and then people have little reason to be concerned about you, although they always are. Oh, that's pretty. Setback number 1. Transmission blows after having been rebuilt 7,000 kilometers ago. Setback number 2, misunderstanding about the type of vehicle when looking at the invoice, thinking they had room for me in their lot today, but they don't. Not until Friday now. So I am stranded for several days, but I'm lucky that I have a place to put my stuff, and I've got a friend's house that I can stay, and I got another little buddy to hang out with too. That's Pepper, and his nickname is Summer. Yeah, hey Sum Sum. Hey Sum Sum. See, he's like, hey, only my mommy calls me dad. Anyway, I pet-sitted this little fella over Christmas. Well, we had quite the night. The girls were awake. They were awake and restless because they haven't had a decent walk. And now, Rosie keeps trying to drink from that puddle that has transmission fluid. And I've already swept it away once. So I'm going to have to risk taking them down the trail and hoping that they don't get too barky with some person who's inevitably going to pass by. Waiting for the water to boil. I had the girls out down the trail, and yeah, it didn't go too badly. And I was thinking about like the whole concept of failure. This experiment has failed. And I mean, I'm not at a point in my life where I'm really super hard on myself, as long as I try my best and my intentions are good. And at some point in my middle of my life, between where I am now, 55, and I don't know, the last 20 years maybe, I came to understand that failure, or FAIL as an acronym, which is first attempts in learning. So, and I know that no one who's ever been really good at anything has done so perfectly out of the gate. People that have ended up really successful in their lives have experienced a lot of failures. So I don't feel bad, you know, about me. I think my intentions were all of the best, you know, and you know, I was living my dream, which was, you know, a cabin in the woods. And I also, thank you for the butt shot. No, they're not paying for that. They're not paying for that, you're silly. Anyway, she's a blonde. She's a silly blonde like me. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, living the dream. Living the dream. Good times, as Tracy would say. Good times. My dream was to sell my house in 2020. I had spent a month in Newfoundland in January, and I decided, you know what, I want to do this now. I've been watching the YouTube videos about RV life, van life. I want to do it. I want to sell the house in the spring. I want to buy an RV, and I want to hit the road, and I really wanted to travel all through the States, and at that time I had a little bit of money, you know, to do that, so it wasn't unrealistic. My last coffee in the RV for who knows how long. Really, it depends if I have any complications getting the transmission fixed. If coffee spills, it spills the coffee on the countertop. Ah. Oh boy, I'm a weirdo. So the lighting. Basically, because I haven't been able to use the engine at all, and I guess we're going on, it's Friday today? 72 hours of completely stranded sort of boondocking, and yeah, after the first 24 hours I shut my fridge down just because the coach battery it's low. Oh, it's reading 11 volts. It was down to the red 10 when I shut everything down. It's a USB light plugged into my Jackaroo battery here. And while I'm at it, here's a system that I actually learned from watching Vanna Mae, which I've adapted. This spray bottle is water. This one is vinegar and water. And this one is dish soap with a little bit of bleach. And, you know, for a quick cleanup of dishes, I just quickly spray, you know, one or the other. And then quick wash, and then rinse. Luxury. It's luxury. And it is, from a camping point of view. Total luxury. So anyway, back to this concept of failure. The failed experiment. What comes to my mind mostly is that the theme for this is failure to thrive. Because we've survived, and we could continue to survive, you know, assuming that the warranty will fix the problem for however temporary it may be, even though it shouldn't be temporary. But 7,000 kilometers is pretty freaking temporary after spending $6,500 getting your transmission fixed. So I'm hoping, I'm praying, that it'll all be covered. And in a perfect world, from there, I am going to come up with a reasonable exit plan, you know. I mean, I would love it if this whole thing pans out that I actually do start getting more hours, like enough hours for it to be livable. But I'm not counting on that. And I am prepared to pack it in and, you know, sell kind of as soon as possible within reason. And go back to the off-grid property because, you know, it's not like that's bad. I mean, I never intended for this to be a more than over the winter, you know, 6 months endeavor anyway. Like, I had intended to be heading back. I just thought, I didn't know it was going to be with, you know, me being destitute for most of the time and going back with more debt and not knowing how I'm going to get back. So, I mean, selling the RV may, in fact, be my way of getting back without having to, you know, be a burden to anyone by, you know, borrowing money and whatnot. So, yeah, so there's so many thoughts. And although typical life can seem routine and maybe even boring, and especially from the outside, or even, but then if you're bored from the inside, I think that's far worse of a thing to experience, you know, not. Oh God. But how can life actually be boring? Because are you not always sort of at least struggling with your boredom or coming up with ways to try and counteract your boredom? What is this alarm for? Something. Oh, I see. I have to set myself weekly alarms over various things so that I don't forget things, because I'm at that point in my life where my memory just isn't perfect. And I'm not much of a weed eater, so it's not because of that. It's just, yeah, my friend Dale used to call people who smoke pot weed whackers. He's a weed whacker. Like, you know, anyway, he kind of got a really quirky mind and the whole play on words thing. But again, that's the whole, I think that's what makes life interesting, is that really when just about almost anyone, like kind of sits into their natural relaxed state where they just start to unwind and be themselves, dang, they're quirky, you know. We're all, that's the beauty of it really, is that people living their lives in their own way, not under severe pressures, you know, when they have those moments where they can just sort of freely sit and be themselves, be it even if they're staring at their socks for half an hour because their mind is off somewhere else, and like they're like, oh yeah, what was I doing? I was getting dressed. Then that's what's so interesting. I think that's where AI is going to fail, right? Is because AI, and I think maybe that's why there's so much interest in people's data about, and maybe how they even would like to watch a human. But the thing is, they'll never know. Maybe they will someday. But from what I can tell, they'll never know what's going on in your mind as you're sitting going about your daily life. I mean, just like we'll never really know what the dogs are thinking. Oh my God, look at this. Oh my God, they're playing tug. Oh my God, so cute. Little bastards. God, they make my life really interesting and really challenging sometimes. And the challenges are when my sinoatrial node is bathed in adrenaline. Heart pumping. Because they've done something bad, or they're running off, or they're barking at somebody and somebody's freaked out. And so yeah, this morning, in one way, it's kind of depressing. But on the other hand, I have a certain amount of, like my morning routine this morning, even making the coffee, I felt like there's an awakeness, an awareness, maybe even a finality to it, where I'm really able to be fully present in this moment, because it's like, you know what? I'm not going to forget the morning that my RV got towed away from Tracy's place. I mean, Tracy will never we won't forget this. And any kind of day or any kind of moment like that where because gosh, we can't hold all the details, and so much of our lives is just forgotten. We don't remember it. So any of these like significant moments, when 911 happened, I remember where I was. I was sitting in a classroom and I was studying to be an intensive care nurse. I remember what I was wearing, I had my Doc Martens on, I had my overalls, and I had a nice black, shirt underneath. Yeah, I was kind of in this, still in this real hippie phase of, whenever I didn't have to look all normal, that I would be like, okay, yeah, I'm wearing overalls and Doc Martens, yeah. Yeah, so I mean, and regardless of, the positivity of the moment, I mean, that moment was simply unreal, wondering what happened. And I mean, this is, like I said, on one level, is quite sad and quite depressing, because it's a failure to thrive. It's like most likely packing it in, or at very least, unless I win the lotto, looking for an exit strategy from the RV. Maybe sometimes just being able to be really aware and awake in the moment brings with it a satisfaction that survives that moment, even if the moment was in many ways challenging. And that when the stress chemistry clears the body at some point down the road, that, that moment, if not pleasant, is at least meaningful. And Dr. Peterson, he has stated many times in and I don't follow him super closely anymore, but I mean his tone has kind of changed a bit, so anyway. But prior to, his super famedom, where he, became kind of, way more staunchly, seemingly political, I listened to hours and hours and hours and hours of his talks and lectures and stuff, and really, to bear the suffering of life, there has to be meaning in it. It has to be meaningful. So, for example, raising my children, that was not fun. What I had to do to raise them was not fun, but it had meaning, it had purpose. And I think that's why it's such a challenge, you know, to end up, you know, as the empty nester. And, you know, it's like, oh, the empty nester, and I'm so empty nester at 50. The 50s are the new 20s, which they kind of are, because suddenly you're free to do and plan a whole new life. You can plan a new career if you want. But anyway, I tried. But that it's the time when you get to kind of, if you choose to, get to do your 20s over again with a, you know, less up-to-date model. The body isn't quite where it was. But it's that new freedom with, you know, 20 or 30 years experience, you know, the empty nest, if you choose to embrace it that way. But far before I had to get to that point, I actually had a client for real estate who, you know, they had an acreage. It, you know, it was like 70 acres or something like that. So it took me about 4 hours to show the property, because, you know, show the house and then walk them through the whole trails. So yeah, and it never sold. So, and it was an hour's drive. So yeah, anyway, everyone working in real estate, it's not like they're just rolling in this. You know, some people, they just really work hard and they really do the job. I did the job. Anyway, from that one experience, I think this was the value, was that, you know, when we were walking between the house and the outbuilding, he said, you know, so do you have kids? And I'm like, yeah, I do. He's like, how many? 2. And I was like, son and a daughter. He's like, oh yeah? You close to that daughter of yours? I'm like, yeah, I am. And he went, how old is she? 16. Without missing a beat, he leaned in, he said, do yourself a favor and start therapy now, because she's going to leave you soon and you will not be able to cope if you don't start trying to deal with this now. Anyway, I never brush off those moments when an ordinary person leans in suddenly and gives me advice. You know, I don't always follow it. It doesn't always end up being a part of me. But this is one of those times where I can honestly say that the value I got from listing that property for 6 months that didn't sell because it was overpriced for the area and the economy wasn't great, you know, in that rural area. But I had my joy, didn't I? I got to, not I had to. I got to take a nice country drive and spend gas. And I got to meet new people, and I got to walk those trails, and I got to see wildlife. And then I got to get some of the best advice, and just about the only advice that I ever got about the empty nesting syndrome, you know, and how to get through it. So there you go. Anyway, this is going to be quite the morning. And the concept was failure to thrive. And I'm going to say that that is what resonates most with me. There's too many outer circumstances that have occurred. I haven't failed by my own actions or my own inactions, because, you know, I've been at the ready to work, to apply myself, to take a course. this whole time. And I still am. If somebody said, hey, I'll take you on as a pre-apprentice, you know, you can clean the shop here and then we'll get you into the RV tech program maybe for the fall. And yeah, you know, I would do it. So although I may indeed be foolish to have taken the risk, I can live with being a fool. But being a fool is not being a failure, whatever that means. So definitely I am the fool. And like in tarot, the fool, what does the fool represent again? I'll have to insert something here about that. The key words for fool, upright, beginnings, innocence, spontaneity, and free spirit. The Fool is numbered 0, the number of unlimited potential. The Fool card, there's a young man standing on the edge of a cliff without a care in the world. As he sets out on a new adventure, he is gazing upwards towards the sky and the universe, and seemingly unaware that he is about to skip off a precipice into the unknown. Over his shoulder rests a modest knapsack containing everything he needs, which isn't much. Let's say he's a minimalist. In the white rose in his hand represents his purity and innocence. At his feet is a small white dog representing loyalty and protection that encourages him to charge forward and learn the lessons he came to learn. The mountains behind the Fool symbolize the challenges yet to come. They are forever present, but the Fool does not care about them right now. He's more focused on starting his expedition. Oh boy. There's a few things to pack out this morning. So is it sad? Yes, on one level it's super sad. And, you know, there's a part of me that's kind of depressed. And I mean, I was called into work yesterday. I'm avoiding saying I had to go to work or that I got to, because it was, you know, the experience of just having to like scramble and get there within an hour and 15 minutes was, you know, when I'm 2 to 3 buses away at the moment. Anyway, I'm sad. I'm definitely, you know, going to mourn the death of this dream. Yeah, that's for sure. But you know, I never got to actually do it, which was the traveling part. We had the whole 2020 experience right at when I was going to put my house on the market. That's when it sort of all came up. So I did end up selling in 2020, but in November, and then of course, you know, it was very limited as to what you could do. So first quarter 2021 was amazing. You know, I did some traveling around Vancouver Island. I lived at Weir Beach with the ocean, like my bed window and the ocean. That was amazing. And that came of a cancellation. Someone canceled. I never would have got in there. Grateful for that. Got the cabin built. Nearly died because of my own mishaps, or as Thetan would call, you know, because of my fuckolepsy. Very clumsy. That's another story. Anyway. Yeah. Nearly accidentally killed myself at the property. So that was good. 2021 overall was huge growth, huge changes, and you know, the whole spending 5-6 months at the Oakwood property and then heading back out here and getting to work in that. And again, that was a random phone call when I was out looking for work in Victoria. I got a random call. Hey, do you think you can come and work at the store? Yeah, like outside of Port Hardy down a logging road. Holberg. I have some videos from there. Hell yeah. And, you know, overall, life was pretty simple and pretty decent and pretty good. I liked working at a general store, which was also a liquor store. You know, you get to know all the locals. So that was good. 2022 was in August 31 was my major, like, where I had the accident, where my car slid off the road and down an embankment. And so I actually had no vehicle for 3 months. I stayed with my partner Pete in Toronto, and you know, that was cool too. I'm just basically not a city girl, and I was, by the end of a Toronto winter, I was just like, I will go back to, you know, campfires and they're not campfires per se, but that's where I'm boiling my water for cooking, for showering, not for drinking, because I was still like visiting Toronto, so I would kind of like do my drinking water there. But I have done my drinking water as well from there, from the frickin' pond. I've done whole water purification, so, you know, and yeah, I looked after the folks, so, you know, again, productive year, just, you know, the RV sat, and this fall was really when I thought, okay, I'm back to it. Winter's in BC, summer's in Ontario. I'll work while I'm here. I'll, you know, bank some money. I'll pay some things down. You know, because the liquor store is a great job if you get the hours. But I didn't. So, anyway. So it's not like I did my best and have failed based upon not being good enough or not bringing the effort or not being willing, or, you know, frig, I've been willing and I've done it. And life's just getting harder for the average person. I had a customer the other day, and you know, I was like, oh, would you like to add $1 for the food bank? And she said, no, but I do work at the food bank. I was like, oh, really? She's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, have you noticed any difference? And she goes, oh, you mean like the increase? And I was like, yeah, tell me. And she said, well, what's really different is that there's a sharp increase in the amount of people using the food bank, and but it's people that are working. She said it's not more like homeless people. It's not like people addicted to alcohol and drugs. She goes, it's working people that are now using the food bank. So just a little tidbit. Life in Canada, you know. Life in Canada. With the prices, with the inflation, with the cost of gas, with everything, you know. So, I'm not a rich girl. I probably could have been if I'd been more financially smart and just more interested in money. But I've never really been that interested in money. I've been interested in living. And, you know, there's reasons for that. It's because, you know, since a young age, I started to lose significant people in my life, and I started to realize how tenuous this whole thing is. You know, like being 10 years old and losing, like it was my Auntie Anne, and she was, like, she's the one who potty trained me, so very, very significant to me. And, you know, so I mean, it started then of the awareness that, you know, these people in your life that you love, that you rely on, that are like your heart, your soul, that are like part of you, can just be gone the next day unexpectedly, no warning. Or they can be gone, as I learned later, with warning. I prefer the with warning. But I mean, it started early for me. Just the awareness of how temporary or as the Buddhists say, impermanence. Impermanence, yeah. Yeah, so no wonder I was drawn into, you know, Buddhism for all, you know, my early 20s, you know, reading everything I could get my hands on, and the approach makes a lot of sense. Anyway, enough said for now. So there you have it. I'm going to pause for now, and I've got a few extra things up there that I've got to move out and, you know, take into my friend's garage, because dang, they're coming for this rig. It's 8:02, and they are coming for this rig at some point soon. Holy shit, they are there. Oh boy. Oh boy, I got no warning. Oh, they see it moving. They see the RV moving and they're freaking out. You guys are silly. It's okay, babies. It's okay, babies. Well, indeed, this could be it. Here it is. I remember once when my daughter was a baby and we had 8mm video, and she was in a car seat in a cold parking lot as my car was being towed. Memories. Good times, as Tracy would say. Yeah, okay. No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. That was cute. So this fella here, he's got a, did he say 14-month-old puppy? So he's kind of knew that the dogs might lose it when the power tools started. You see, he's on the ground. He's underneath. Are you up for that? How many girls want to do that? So, just saying, you know, men are awesome. So, sorry, oh, it's in there tight?
Oh yeah.
Really? It was at like 147,000 and change kilometers when the transmission broke down the first time. The people that rescued us off the Malahat, right, that disconnected it, and that was back then. So that's cool. It was nice of him to point out that there are women who are willing to do the work like this, and that their fleet is led by a woman. It's very cool. And, you know, I'm willing to, you know, be on the ground and do these things. So we do exist. I just, you know, there's a lot of rhetoric out there about men these days, about women these days. You know, and I have a 20-year-old son. So, and I have a daughter, so I need to, far beyond myself, be concerned about these things. And just balance, really, is the goal, is balance and some sanity and some reality, you know? That's what I think, anyway. Gotta have a couple other toys. You know, there's a lot going on in the world, and I think we have to really just truly value each other. And not in some false way, but in an actual, honest, merit-based way. We have to value. Oh, there's the puppy's getting excited. Puppies are excited. So that was Kyle. And here it goes. Here she goes. You know, and valuing each other is not in a way that one is less and one is more. Oh, oh gosh. There she goes. There goes home. Aw. Oh boy. Now we're on to, we're couch surfing. And I don't feel sorry for us, I feel sorry for Tracy. She's got a couch surfer with two freaking wild maniacs. The woman is a saint. Pray for Tracy and for good times, prosperity, wellness, and all those things. She deserves it. She is among a handful of people that I've had the privilege to know that truly deserves a great life. Helping, giving, even when she has next to nothing, you know. She uses the frippin' food bank, and you know, I came home from work last night and she had made me supper, included me, and man, I'm blessed. I'm really blessed. This is my dear friend Tracy, who
Hi.
has taken me in, and she's also the person I lived in her car for a few days in Jasper when we were young.
When we were young.
When we were young.
Back in the day.
I know, and see, we're thick as thieves, man.
Yeah,
Thick as
thick as
thieves. Anyway, the little monster just jumped out of my coat.
Here he is. He's a monster.
Yeah,
Part monster,
there
part
he
rat.
is.
Part mummy.
There he is. I'm gonna just film him too. There's a monster.
Are you coming me?
So here's our new digs for now. I'm editing video with my Jackery on the hood of the van. I'll be cleaning out the van because it has accumulated like some growth of like mold over the winter, not being used, not being heated. And here's the girls, and blessings to my dear, dear, resilient, tough as nails friend for welcoming us into her home and her driveway.